Welcome back to another episode of our Abandoned STI presented by Turn 14 Distribution. Today we head back to the dyno, but before we do that, we've got to install an exhaust housing. There was a bit of heartbreak in the last dyno episode. The engine didn't perform up to standards, but we have the answer, and we think we do, and that is our 0.72 exhaust housing. It's just choking things up too much, as Mike mentioned in the previous video. So we are going to a 9.2 housing from Garrett. This is a V-band, which is so awesome because this is going to make my life pretty easy to swap this out. I literally have to loosen 3 nuts. This should all come out, and then we can put this one in place and we'll be done and headed off to the dyno. One thing I want to mention is we've done a lot of heat wrapping around here. The DEI heat turbo heat shield was a great addition. I've found the heat management in this area is really good. We've got this large intercooler pipe right here, and it doesn't get crazy hot because of all of the nice little heat shielding. So that's something, if you're building a Subaru, you want to consider doing the wrap on both of these items. So it is time to swap this thing in. Here we have our 7.2 housing, and here's our 9.2. The difference is pretty significant if you look at them. The flow rate is actually 20% more. So DP, when you said 450 to 500, I don't think we're gonna make that on this housing, not on pump gas. I think if we go to race gas, we might crest that marker, but more realistically, I'm betting it's gonna be around 410 to the wheels. That's my guess.
Now that we've swapped that exhaust housing to the big boy setup, we are going to swap to a big boy setup intercooler. So this is our old Cosworth one that we've just pulled off. And as you can see, we are going significantly bigger to the Cobb front mount intercooler setup, which is not only much wider and has much better access to clean airflow because of the shape of the front bumper and the fact that it's not going to be blocked by the rebar. It's also much thicker, so we've gained a lot of capacity with this intercooler. Just eyeballing it, I'd say we've gained 35%, maybe more. And we've made this change primarily because we were seeing skyrocketing intake air temperatures on the dyno, and Mike from Cobb Tuning was telling us that that's going to be even worse in the rear world because this thing just wasn't getting any fresh air flow. Like I said, it was getting blocked by
a heat-soaked monster.
It kind of is. So it was just the wrong size for as extreme a motor setup as we're running in this car. And we selected it because it fit under the bumper. So that's one of the tricky parts with the Cobb front mount intercooler setup, which, as you can see, is a very complete kit. Comes with couplers, hose clamps, even comes with this nice little overflow tank, which I think is very slick. Comes with its own blow-off valve, which is designed to bolt onto the cold side pipes, which we don't have yet, which we'll explain in a moment. In any case, this is gonna, I think, solve our skyrocketing intake air temperature issue. And it's also going to fit the front bumper opening much better than the Cosworth one did. However, it's designed for the 2011 to 2014 STI. Ours is an 09. And so we know there's going to be some interference with, I think, the charge pipes on the inside, or maybe with the rebar on the inside of the front bumper cover. So we're going to do whatever it takes to make this fit because we need the performance and capacity of the Cobb kit on this setup. It may require modifying the rebar a bit, or it may require just swapping to 2011 front bumper, which we'll do if we have to. So we're gonna do whatever it takes to make this
in the
motor
name of perform
to its potential, everyone. So Pete's gonna get to installing this. I'm gonna make a run to the border where our cold size charge pipes are waiting, and then we can show you how their blow-off valve bolts up, and we'll show you the rest of the kit in detail once it's on the car.
After fighting with that Cosworth intercooler kit when I was installing it, the Cobb Tuning kit went on like a dream. It literally fit like a glove. I give this 10 out of 10. The effort that went into designing this kit is superb. As I said, with the Cosworth, I struggled with so much, like the ill fitment, having to put the pipes in and all that struggle down there, and we had to get that extra extender. There was so much of that kind of nonsense. With this kit, none at all. It fits up so well, and check out the size of this intercooler. Say goodbye to high IATs. This kit is complete with everything, which is really awesome, even down to the blow-off valve. And I was worried that we would have to run into this issue, and that was having to weld a bung on for our IAT sensor, intake air temperature. And guess what? They already include it. So Cobb, you guys have outdone yourselves with this kit. It is a little expensive, but guess what? Worth every penny. If you're a high horsepower Subaru guy, this kit is what you want. So another huge issue I had with the Cosworth kit was that this intercooler piping right here was being superheated by the header. And what Cobb has done, which is first ingenious, they've used a silicone coupler in this area, so that right away reduces the amount of heat transfer into the air. And I've also actually put some DI Reflecta Gold heat shielding here as well. But Cobb has engineered this so that this is the hot side of the piping. So for the Cosworth, this was the cold side, meaning the intercooler had already done its job. The air was coming through here and then being warmed up by the header before going into the intake. However, Cobb, with the ingenious guys that they are, they've done this on the hot side. So now our hot air, even though it's right close to the header here, it doesn't really matter that much, because guess what? It's going through the intercooler, then the other way up into the intake manifold. So brilliant job on that. And one last thing I want to point out, because I love this kit so much, is they've also hard mounted these pipes on both sides. And that allows you to get your intercooler piping up top in with ease. If you guys watched the previous episode, I struggled with this pipe. Every time I would put that vibrant coupler on and then try to put the hard pipe in, it would like slide down and move. Not the case with this. We've got our bumper on, and boy, oh boy, did I have to trim a lot of stuff to get it to fit. These 08 to I think 10 bumpers, they've got fog lights in this whole area, and this Cobb kit, not gonna work with them. So as you can see, I had to trim a boatload of stuff out of here, specifically this area, to make this fit. It's still a little tight, but you know what? It's working. I also had to go to town on the fog light trim to get this to fit up.
And just like that, the front bumper is back on, and we even used the Cobb stencil that's supplied with that kit, sprayed on the logo there on the front mount, because I've never heard Pete giggle with joy while installing a part before, but he was literally giggling. He was so impressed by how well everything fit up. And we should all say, this is not a paid advertisement for Cobb. We were just that blown away by how well this kit fit up. So I think 4 more thumbs up on that, and the front bumper kind of fits. There was a lot of trimming, obviously, to the back side of the bumper to get it to fit up. The big thing is the loss of the fog lights, and we're thinking about ways of like filling in the fog light opening here, maybe using some of this diamond-shaped grilling or mesh again. But let us know in the comment section what you think might be a cool way to, you know, clean this area up. Pete, you were also saying that there might be aftermarket options for panels here? Or?
Some of these STIs came without fog lights.
Right.
So I think it's a different style panel. I just don't know if it's going to fit any better or
maybe
worse.
Maybe like UK market stuff?
Yeah,
or there might be
who knows?
So let us know in the comments, guys, if there's some interesting options for this area of the bumper. We do both, I think, prefer the 08 to 10 bumper styling. It's less squared off here. So it's nice that we were able to make it fit. And man, look at how much fresh air we're going to have just smashing into the intercooler here, where before we didn't have hardly any.
Oh, I can't wait.
This is a big step up. So it's time to go to the dyno tomorrow, which is a Saturday, which means I'm on daddy duties taking my kids to soccer. So Pete's flying solo on it.
Well, and Mike is actually going to be here.
Oh, that's a good
Cobb
point.
Tuning.
Yeah, Mike is up here partly vacationing and partly tuning a few customer cars, and he's able to squeeze us in on a Saturday. So Pete, being the go-getter that he is, decided to get in there. So you will see Mike live instead of on my phone, working his magic on, I was going to say keyboard, but maybe there's a keyboard. There is a keyboard, obviously, but then it's through the Cobb AP. So anyway, ignore me. I'm going to go to soccer now. You guys go to the dyno.
And just like that, we are back at Mantis Racing. We've got the Subaru loaded up on our Dynapack, and Mike is here from Cobb Tuning. So
How
Mike,
are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited.
Awesome.
So let's just give the people a rundown what we're going to do today.
Yeah, so we're going to run the car again today. We've got the bigger turbine housing on it, which I think will free up a bunch of power from the mid-range on up, mostly on the top end. We've also got the Cobb Tuning front mount intercooler on there now, which is going to give us much cooler charge temps. And I think we'll see some power from that as well.
And I should mention, I drove this car here, and the IATs were at ambient temperature, so they didn't even come up. So
That's what we want to see.
I'm hoping everything works out today. So without further ado, let's get this thing fired up and going.
All right.
Preliminary pull is done. And what do you think, Mike?
So, the preliminary pull made a little bit less boost than what the car made on the dyno last time, so it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison at the same boost level, but we did actually still make a little more power than last time, so things are looking up, and our charge air temperatures were the biggest difference I could see between the two data logs. In the run I looked at from last time, temperature rose about 25 degrees during the pull. Today, at the start of the pull, the end of the pull was about the same temperature. So the intercooler definitely doing a lot more work, has a lot more capacity to it, and I'll be happy to tell the guys at Cobb that it's doing what we want it to do.
Yeah, you bet, yeah. Well, you said we just had a scary moment after that last pull. What happened there?
We did. So we actually lost quite a bit of fuel pressure on that pull there, and not sure why yet. We had just under a quarter tank of fuel, but the fuel gauge light was on. I'm not sure what's going on there. So
who knows?
We could be lower on fuel than we think we are. But what happened was our Cobb differential fuel pressure sensor basically just saved the motor. So we have a sensor combined with some code in the ECU that allows the tuner to put in a control strategy where if the fuel pressure drops, it'll open the injectors for a longer period of time than usual to still try to provide the proper amount of fuel. And what happened here was, we can see that this yellow line, the fuel pressure dropped from about the 40 it typically sits at down to 17.
Oh, wow.
And the injector duty cycle, which normally peaks on this car in the high 70s, went up to about 102, 103, basically used up all of the remaining injector that was available in order to try to overcome that. And when the pressure gets that low, we aren't able to fully supply the car with fuel. Also, we went past 100% duty on the injector, and you can't get more than all of it. So at the end of the day, the car did lean out a little, but this did enough to save the motor, so very happy to see that. And we're going to throw some more fuel in the car, see if everything goes back to normal. Hopefully that's the case, and that's simple, and we move on. And we'll just wonder why the fuel gauge read so wrong.
Well, Mike, that is a conclusion of all the dyno pulls and the tuning.
Yep.
And where are we at here?
So we are at 398 horsepower, right about 400.
Not bad.
Kind of about what I was thinking for pump gas with this setup.
And do you find that's pretty on par with what we should see here?
Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. It's a unique setup with the 2.1 liter stroker motor. It's a relatively new turbo that I hadn't seen on this car, so didn't really know what to expect, but that's what it did on about 25 pounds of boost in that area. It does taper down to 23.
Yeah, it looks like it's still clogging up at the top there, right? It's choking out.
It does seem to, yeah. I had to ramp the boost controller duty cycle way up on the top end to try to get it to make boost, and it's still tapered down to 23. Peter was kind enough to actually convert our boost control routing to use the 3-port to control both ports on the 2-port TurboSmart wastegate. So we were not only using the 3-port to drive the wastegate shut, we had the bigger turbine housing, we made some changes that we were hoping would let us get some more top-end flow. I think we got some, but there really does still seem to be a wall that we're hitting, and that was made even more clear at the end, where all I did was back the boost off a little bit, and you still maintain quite a bit of power, and the car seems to do it a lot more easily.
Gotcha. So in your opinion, what should we do if we wanted to rev? We built this motor to rev out to 8,500, 9,000 RPM, but we really see no benefit from that right now. So bigger turbo, different header. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, I always like to have an equal length header on a car, and I know that you want to take this thing out on a road course. So especially for that, in terms of reliability, keeping all the cylinders operating in the same manner, it'll actually drop some exhaust pressure, which will reduce heat and help with reliability. I do expect to see some power from that as well. How much? Not exactly sure. Again, this setup is a little bit unique, but I think there should be some gains to be had with the header. Other than that, certainly a larger turbo would really aid on the top end. So for only 2.1 liters, this turbo picks up, relatively soon, but on the top end, we just can't seem to carry the power out. So
you'd have to trade off some lag for some top end.
We would, yeah, certainly. And within the Garrett line, they've got some other GTX series turbos, like the GT35 84RS, which would be a nice piece to maybe make, let's say, 450 horsepower on pump, but really carry the power band way, way out, and certainly have plenty more potential on a higher quality fuel. But if you're looking for that horsepower that just keeps going, I think a bigger turbo is going to be the real answer.
Gotcha. And quickly, we didn't talk about the spool on the smaller housing versus the larger one. It really wasn't a huge difference, right? Maybe like 200, 300 RPM?
It wasn't, yeah. I'd say, right around 300 RPM.
Wow.
And on the street, it might actually be a little closer. On this style hub dyno, the loading isn't quite the same as on the road. So now that we've got it fully dialed in, I'll be curious to see from some road logs that I can go back and compare to before what it looks like. So I think you'll definitely feel the difference, but especially when you're on the road course and you're operating the engine above, let's say, 4,500 RPM, I think this thing's pretty much just going to pick up right where you want it.
Gotcha. But the consensus is always go with the 9.2 housing, right?
Yeah, and until they make something bigger. But, it was definitely an improvement.
Well, everyone, so that is officially a wrap here. Big thank you to Mantis Racing for staying the extra long time to get this car tuned up with us. And I've got to say, on one hand, I'm extremely happy. I think the car performed very well. 400 wheel horsepower is nothing to scoff at. At the same time, it feels a little underwhelming. So I think before me and Dave go test to see whose daily driver this really is, I do want to do one last mod, and that is switch out the header to an equal length one, like Mike mentioned, because I think it may help us out here. And it's not going to be a huge difference in terms of power, but we want to make sure that this car is reliable for the track before we go rip it. And as Mike said, the unequal one causes a huge hotspot on 2 cylinders, and you don't want that. So that is officially a wrap. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and make sure to put in the comments section what you think we should do. Should we change out the turbo? Should we change out the header? Or should we just go full send?